Please hear. Avahita, with great attention. Rajan, O King. Maharaja Parikshit. Api, although. Guhyam, very confidential. Because ordinary men cannot understand the activities of Krishna. Vedami, I shall explain. Te, unto you. Bruyu, explain. Snigdasya, submissive. Shishyasya, of a disciple. Guruva, spiritual masters. Guyam, very confidential. Api, uta, even so. O King, kindly hear me with great attention. Although the activities of the Supreme Lord are very confidential, no ordinary man being able to understand them, I shall speak about them to you, for spiritual masters explain to a submissive disciple even subject matters that are very confidential and difficult to understand. Text 4. Then, after saving the boys and calves from the mouth of Aghasura, who was death personified, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, brought them all to the bank of the river and spoke the following words. My dear friends, just see how this riverbank is extremely beautiful because of its pleasing atmosphere. And just see how the blooming lotuses are attracting birds and bees by their aroma. The humming and chirping of the bees and birds is echoing throughout the beautiful trees in the forest. Also, here the sands are clean and soft. Therefore, this must be considered the best place for our sporting and pastimes. Purport. The description of Vrindavan forest as given herewith, was spoken by Krishna 5,000 years ago, and the same conditions prevailed during the time of the Vaishnavacharyas 300 or 400 years ago. Kujat kokila hamsa sadasa gana kirne mayura kule. Vrindavan forest is always filled with the chirping and cooing of birds like cuckoos, kokila, ducks, hamsa, and cranes, sarasa. And it is also full of peacocks, mayurakule. The same sounds and atmosphere still prevail in the area where our Krishna Balaram temple is situated. Everyone who visits this temple is pleased to hear the chirping of the birds as described here. Kuja kokila hamsa sadasa. Om Agana Chimadandasya Ganam Jana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are now in the midst of Krishna's pleasure pastimes with his cowherd boys, Jamuna Tira Vanachari. We sing every day glorifying Krishna's sports with his cowherd boyfriends, with his parents, and with his girlfriends. To understand that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the source of all pleasure gives us relief from our foolish slavery to material existence. Underneath our mad attachment and crazy dedication to exploiting the material energy is ignorance of our spiritual identity, ignorance of the supreme spiritual identity, and how in the ultimate source there is all pleasure. Bhagavatam tries to teach us from the very beginning, Janmadi Yasyataha. The supreme absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. Everything means unlimited pleasure and enjoyment. But we are doubtful about that due to habituated attachment to the illusory energy over countless lifetimes. Even though we suffer so much through our slavery to the material energy, we don't give it up because we're not sure of what else there is better. Is it just emptiness? Is it the void? Is it the oneness? Or maybe no one knows for sure and it's all a great mystery. So why should we miss out on the so-called pleasures that are readily available? Right? At least there's something. But who knows what is beyond? Bhagavatam is delivering to you what is beyond the supreme pleasure pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We often explain that understanding Krishna in truth is far beyond understanding God as the creator, as the maintainer, as the destroyer. Understanding Krishna in truth means understanding how Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And I often explain that this supremacy in enjoyment is a quality or characteristic that we are most hesitant about relinquishing to God. God can do anything but enjoy. We are meant to be the enjoyers, and if there's a God, God should assist us in our pleasure pastimes. But here in Bhagavatam, you are reading about the incomparable, inconceivable pleasure pastimes of the Supreme. That indeed is what is meant when we read Janmada Yasitaha. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. Because our vision is covered by the curtain of Maya, we have doubts. And therefore we think, better fall back on the old reliable. Better fall back on that trusty sense gratification, because even though it's not all that everyone makes it out to be, at least it's something. Whereas Krishna and his Leela, his pastimes, they are far beyond us. Who knows if we'll ever make it there? Meanwhile, while we're struggling to be transcendental, we could be missing out on a lot of good stuff right now. So in this way, we try to make a compromise. All right, there could be something to Krishna as a supreme enjoyer. But meanwhile, I've got to do something in the here and now, right? So maybe have a twofold approach. Grant some enjoyment to Krishna while taking some for yourself. But Bhagavatam is beyond any deal. Bhagavatam is beyond any negotiation. It states right in the very beginning, Paramo namatsaranam satam, dharma projita kaitavotra. All kinds of negotiations, all kinds of compromises, all kinds of deal making is swept out. Has no place in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting the pure and unlimited pleasure pastimes of the Supreme Absolute Truth. And we can see, when we hear those pastimes, that Krishna does everything we long to do and fail at, but he does it with complete and unlimited perfection. No wonder we're envious. But the process of bhakti transforms the envy into appreciation, glorification, and the height of ecstatic love. Our material existence is due to envy. We want to imitate Krishna. We want our own pastimes. We want our own intimacies, our own sports. Why does Krishna have it all? What about us? But the amazing thing is that the devotee actually, by participating in Krishna's pastimes, enjoys more than Krishna. All the incarnations of Godhead, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. All the incarnations of Godhead would rather give up their incarnation status and become devotees. To become a devotee means to be the enjoyed, not the enjoyer. So how do we get over our disease? How do we get over our madness that we want to be the ultimate enjoyer? Surrounded by our own associates, all looking to us. How do we get over this? The Bhagavatam solution is by hearing about Krishna, you gradually give up the deep-seated desire to enjoy material nature. This is the economic, political, sociological problem that has to be dealt with. The deep-seated desire to exploit and enjoy material nature. So how did this discussion about Krishna's riverbank pastimes develop? Things sprang from a question by Parikshit Maharaj. He was wondering out loud to Shukadeva Goswami, why is it that the pastime of Krishna's killing Aghasura was not discussed until 1 year later? What's going on here? And because whenever Parikshit Maharaj asks a question, he's not only seeking the facts, so to speak, he's also deepening the rasa by his questions. He's deepening the transcendental flavors. So along with the inquiry about what happened, what's going on, they didn't talk about such a phenomenal event of Krishna's killing Aghasura until 1 year later. What happened? Parikshit Maharaj then gives you a hint. I think that there was some special energy of Krishna at work. And that hint given by Parikshit Maharaj actually sends Shukadeva Goswami into ecstasy. And Shukadeva Goswami is stunned. The acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explain. Shukadeva Goswami is actually stunned, speechless, because the questions of Parikshit Maharaj are provoking Shukadeva Goswami in pure love of Krishna. So then how is Bhagavatam going to proceed? What happened? Shukadeva Goswami is stunned in silence. But remember, this Bhagavatam is being spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, who's in an audience of sages, mystic yogis, metaphysicians from all over the universe. And in that company is Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. So to bring Shukadeva Goswami out of ecstasy, the acharyas explain, Narada Muni and Vyasadeva start chanting Hare Krishna out loud to bring Shukadeva Goswami back into focus. And so then, now that he's focused, Shukadeva Goswami is going to glorify Parikshit Maharaj and his questions. Sadhu Prishtam Mahabhaga Taya Bhagavatotama. Your question is excellent. You're the most fortunate. You are Bhagavatotama, Bhagavata Uttama, the topmost devotee. Just see the questions you're asking. Oh, if we could only come somewhat near that status of being able to ask questions that provoke such transcendental ecstasy. Shukadeva Goswami knows that this is how bhakti is transmitted, through questions and answers about Krishna's pastimes. So he's congratulating the questioner. He's not simply giving the answer. He's first congratulating Parikshit Maharaj. You're stirring things up. You've been so successful. Mahabhaga, you're so fortunate. Bhagavata Uttama, you're the topmost devotee. And what is a further symptom of your exalted status? I can see that you are tasting Krishna's pastimes as newer and newer at every moment. Each time you hear a leela, it's like you never heard it before. This shows indeed your status. And this is the status we all crave for. This is the ultimate goal of life. To become mature in bhakti so that hearing about Krishna and what he does is always ever fresh. Does that mean that there is something measurable about Krishna's pastimes in terms of their effects upon us? No, Krishna's Leela, they're absolute. They're beyond the material energy in terms of time and space. You see, when something is saturated with time, past, present, and future, then there is diminution, satiation, diminishment. This is why when you're trying to enjoy the material energy, what happens? You have to stay on the what is called hedonic treadmill. This is a universal treadmill that is available not only at every fitness center, but in every home, every apartment. What is the hedonic treadmill? Psychologists say that this is what happens. You try to enjoy, everything is fresh in the beginning, and then the flavor depletes due to something called adaptation. Whatever you're doing that's so fresh and new at first, you become accustomed to it. It becomes the same old, same old. When I'm speaking at universities, I just finished a tour of universities in various parts of the USA. I explain this point to the students. I say, you know about adaptation, right? You hook up, you start a relationship, it's sizzling at first, and then all the flavor disappears. They all nod their head. Yeah, we know. I said, well, try to understand what's actually happened. There is a scientific principle at work here. It's the nature of the illusory energy to first appear delightful, and then all the air goes out. It's the same old, the thrill fades away. That's because of adaptation. So then, what is your next step? Try again, and try again, and try again. And the illusory energy induces you. One more time. You'll do better this time. Everyone else is happy. Then you look around, and the syndrome known as social comparison takes over. What does everyone else have? What's everyone else doing? And you measure your happiness and pleasure in terms of what everyone else is up to. Everyone else is getting it. Everyone else is happy. Why not me? So the result is you stay on the hedonic treadmill. You just keep going, one after another after another. Because we're attached to the illusory energy. What does Prahlad Maharaj explain about this? Anda yatanda upaniyamana tepisha tantram ududamni bhada. The blind following the blind, and not only are such poor persons blind, but they're bound by the cords of karmic activity. So it's not just that the blind are leading the blind. We have to see the cords. By engaging in karmic activity, we become bound tightly by ropes. Karma means to become bound. So we have this problem that no matter what we do to try to be the enjoyer, the thrill always disappears. Look at Parikshit Maharaj. His thrill simply increases at every moment. Krishna's pastimes are inherently all spiritual, just like Krishna's name. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Krishna's name is a touchstone, eternally free from the material energy. Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukta. It's full, perfect, and complete. Similarly, Krishna's pastimes have nothing to do with adaptation and the hedonic treadmill. This is our fear that I'll sacrifice, well, not everything for Krishna, but something for Krishna, and then all the flavor will go. Maybe I'll, in the beginning, feel a burst of enthusiasm. dancing ecstatically during the greeting of the deities and Prabhupada's Guru Puja. But then as the years go by, all the air starts to go out of the balloon gradually. It becomes the same old, same old. No, it doesn't have to be like that. If we actually seek to understand Krishna Tattva, the science of Krishna, and apply it in our life. There are two phases. Number one, there is the recuperative phase of bhakti. And number two, there is the relishing phase. The recuperative phase means getting over the disease of material existence. We have to understand our existential situation, how we're bound by the cords of karmic activity, and therefore we don't taste the natural sweetness of Krishna's pastimes to the fullest extent that's possible. And the fullest extent that's possible means no limitation. That's why we sing about the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, mentioned in this purport, that what is their devotional service? The devotional service of Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatan, and the others is to expand the limits of the ocean of transcendental bliss. The shores are always moving in that ocean. The ocean is always increasing. So this is the reality, and this is what Parikshit Maharaj is tasting. He's hearing Krishna Lila as newer and newer at every moment. So Shukadeva Goswami is congratulating him. You are demonstrating the characteristics of a Bhagavatottama, topmost devotee. And here is the proof. Although you've heard these Leelas before, still, each time you hear it, it's like you never heard them. We can apply that same principle in the recuperative stage of bhakti. You could say to yourself, I've heard Bhagavad Gita so many times. I've heard the pastimes so many times that are there in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why should I devote special attention to hearing this person speak class or that person speak class? I know whatever they're going to say. I've heard it all before. But to make spiritual advancement means to treat each opportunity about hearing of Krishna as if it's ever fresh, ever new. Don't let your material senses tell you, you've heard it all before, you know. What can this devotee say? What can that devotee say that you haven't already heard before? Take the approach that I'm going to seize this opportunity to glorify Krishna. Never mind what my material mind and senses say. I've never heard it before. The subject matter is ever fresh. And then you plead with the Lord in the heart, let me actually one day hear as it is. Following in the footsteps of how Parikshit Maharaj hears. So this is how the Brahma Vimohana Leela gets underway. It gets underway in terms of its transmission, in terms of Shukadeva Goswami speaking it to Parikshit Maharaj. It gets underway in terms of pure ecstasy. So much so that Shukadeva Goswami has left the ordinary mundane plane of existence that he appears to be on, but actually is not. And he goes deep into samadhi, and Narada Muni and Vyasadeva have to wake him up out of his samadhi so that Bhagavatam can proceed. It's important to understand about Srimad Bhagavatam that it is a work of ecstasy. Even when Shukadeva Goswami is speaking about the planetary systems, he's giving you his ecstatic realizations. Sometimes devotees would ask Prabhupada, what about that 5th canto, the planets and all that information, cosmological information that's hard to understand? And Prabhupada would answer, 5th canto planetary information means Shukadeva Goswami and his ecstatic vision in pure love of Krishna. Bhagavatam means to trust someone who has that ecstatic, pure vision. So now, Shukadeva Goswami begins to explain what's happening on the bank of the river. Krishna has announced, this is the perfect place for our pastimes. Krishna knows how to enjoy with his associates. You've got all the sense objects there, transcendentally. So Shukadeva Goswami points out, look what's there for the smell. There's the aroma of the lotus flowers. Look what's there for the ears. There's the sounds made by the bees and the birds and the peacocks echoing throughout the forest. Look what's there for the eyes. There's the beauty of the forest, the trees by the river. The whole scene is overwhelmingly beautiful for the eyes. So you've got things for the ears. You've got sense objects for the nose, the fragrance of the lotus flowers. You've got sense objects for the eyes. And then soon they're going to be sense objects for the tongue. Because Krishna is going to announce, boys, it's late. That Agasura pastime took some time, you know. Of course, there's no time affecting Krishna Leela. But time serves as a prop to change from one pastime to another. Even when demons attack in Boma Leela, Krishna's earthly pastimes, the attacks by demons like Agasura simply serve as scene changers in terms of Krishna's enjoyment. So everything is utilized 100% for Krishna's pleasure. And Krishna's pleasure is full of variety. What about texture for the tactile sense? That's the sand on the riverbank. It's soft and clean. So taking into account all these transcendental sense objects, Krishna tells his cowherd boys, here is the spot, here is the time. Break out the lunches. What about the cows and calves? What about them? They're most important to the livelihood of Vrindavan. Krishna and the cowherd boys know that there's plenty of grass nearby. They can let the cows wander. There'll be no problem. So then they sit down at this perfect place. Now, why is the place perfect? You see, everything in relation to Krishna is maximally important. Just like the battlefield of Kurukshetra is important because Krishna and Arjuna are there, similarly, this riverbank is important because, first of all, it's Vrindavan Dham, and secondly, because Krishna and the cowherd boys are there. But let's get into the detailed analysis of why this particular spot on the bank of the Yamuna is all important. The acharyas explain, number one, it's a great place for playing sports. Number two, it's a great place for fighting. The cowherd boys like to wrestle and fight with one another. So that's the second great characteristic of that particular spot. And thirdly, it's a great place for eating in rows. So meditate on all those three characteristics. And you see the expertise of Krishna in arranging for the enjoyment of his devotees. So they all sit down in rows, but each one wants to look at Krishna. Each cowherd boy wants to feel that unique relationship with Krishna, that Krishna is looking only at me. And Krishna grants that facility. Each cowherd boy, and you can't count them, and you can't ask how did all these unlimited cowherd boys fit on the bank of the Jamuna, because you're not dealing with matter, you're not dealing with time and space. Each cowherd boy thinks Krishna is looking directly at me, he's focusing exclusively on me. Krishna is able to handle unlimited loving relationships. There's no limitation by time and space. I remember when I first started to read Krishna book, because I never went to any temple or any devotee gathering, I simply read the books at home. So I read about the spiritual world, and I was thinking to myself, listen to this. Everyone will want to go there. I better hurry up and get there before it gets overcrowded. It's kind of a New Yorker reaction, you know? The subway, on the streets. So it's spiritual world, you know? It could be rush hour there, trying to get peak time traffic. But there are no such material laws operating in Krishna's pastimes. So then the cowherd boys break out their lunches. And everyone knows what each cowherd boy has in terms of the particular delicacies given by that cowherd boy's mother. But still the cowherd boys in pure ecstasy announce to each other, just see what's in my lunch. Just see what's in my lunch bag. Now, you should be concerned. Why weren't the lunches polluted during the Agasura pastime? Because remember, the cowherd boys marched into the mouth of Agasura. What happened with their lunches? Weren't they contaminated by the horrible fumes and other things happening within the mouth and belly of Agasura? No. You have two options, the acharyas point out. Either the cowherd boys hung their lunches from trees before marching into Agasura's mouth, or by Krishna's arrangement, even though they marched into the Agasura demon's mouth with their lunches, by Krishna's arrangement, the lunches were not contaminated. The point being, when you're with Krishna, everything works out somehow or other. That's the point of these details. So they brought out their lunches, and part of the enjoying pastimes is to where you put your lunch. See, everything is Satchidananda, everything is eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So where is each cowherd boy going to put his lunch? They all didn't do the same thing, because in the spiritual world there's unlimited variety. We've got to get these Mayavad, impersonal conceptions out of our mind, that oneness means bliss, that sameness means safety and security. No, in Krishna's Leelas, there are unlimited varieties. Krishna is demonstrating. The impersonalists say it's all one. Well, look at all this that's going on. He's challenging the monists. Look, each cowherd boy is putting his lunch on a different support. Some are using lotus leaf plates. Others are using rocks to put their lunch on. Others are using big fruits to put their lunch on. In this way, there are about 5 or 6 different ways that the cowherd boys would support their lunch. And they're all eating, challenging one another. Taste what my lunch is. Taste what my mother has made. And sometimes they would offer lunch to another cowherd boy to eat and mix the lunch with a flower and pop it into a cowherd boy's mouth. Just see what my mother has made. And the cowherd boy would eat it and then, of course, taste the bitterness of the flour and make a face. Everyone would laugh. And then they'd jump on the cowherd boy who offered the food mixed with flowers. They'd jump on him and beat him. In this way, they're having such fun, all with Krishna in the center. Krishna sitting in the center, meaning not geographically or geophysically. Krishna sitting in the center means each cowherd boy, as we said, thinks Krishna is focusing on me. Yet we have this fear that, how can we trust Krishna? Krishna has so many devotees. How will Krishna pay attention to little old me? But his Leelas completely show the opposite. Everyone gets more than they deserve. That is the nature of bhakti on all levels. Even as a neophyte, even as a beginning devotee, you always get more from Krishna than you deserve. We don't see that because of our lusty vision. I want my material desires fulfilled. Krishna, when are you going to show up? When are you going to show up and help my material desires to proceed successfully. I know what I want, Krishna. I know what I need. Where are you? Krishna is sitting there in the center. And remember, not physically. We've got to get that concept out of our mind. It may be difficult. It may be difficult to see beyond time and space. But by repeated hearing of Krishna's pastimes, you revive your spiritual sensitivities. And you can see Krishna in the center there, not physically in the center. Not that you can measure his being in the center with some kind of, measuring tape. Okay, he's 2 feet from this cowherd boy. He's 3 feet from that cowherd boy. And that's not how he's in the center. He's in the center in terms of the center of their consciousness. And there he's sitting. On one side, he has his flute tucked into his cloth. On the other side, he's got his bugle tucked into his cloth. And there, Krishna is also eating. This scene, you're going to find out, blows Lord Brahma's mind. And therefore, Brahma is going to do something to make an empirical laboratory test. Because Brahma has doubts. Is this really my worshipable Lord? So Krishna is going to enact the whole Brahma Vimohana Leela to please Lord Brahma. Oh, you want me to show who I really am? Because you're wondering, is this little blue boy eating lunch with his cowherd boys in such an infinitely beautiful scene? You're wondering, is this your Govindamadi Purusham Tamahamajami? Okay, watch this. We can only pray to the Guru Parampara that we'll be able to hear this pastime in some way that approaches how Pritchett Maharaj is hearing. Ever fresh, ever new. One last point is, we chanted, Bruyu snigdasya sishyasya guravo guyam apyuta. You may remember the same half of the verse is there in the first canto. Chapter 1, the sages at Naimisaranya, they say this to Sutta Goswami when they're pleading with him, please, the age of Kali is coming, which deteriorates all the good qualities in human beings. Please speak what is the essence, the best thing, so that Yanatma supersedity, so that the self can actually be satisfied. And they state, the sages at Naimisaranya state the reasons why they're appealing to Sutta Goswami. You are Shrestha, you are the elder Vedantist. You've gone through all the Shastras, and you can explain them. You are Anaga, you are free from vice. And you have been an appropriate disciple. Bruyu snigdasya sishyasya. You have submission. Snigdasya means submission, and also it can mean affection for your spiritual master. Why? Because you do what your guru says. Affection for the guru doesn't mean you pat him on the back. I really like you, Affection in the guru-disciple relationship is produced out of obedience. Through obedience, real affection develops. So the sages at Naimisaranya, just as Shukadeva Goswami is speaking, they're congratulating the person that because of your relationship with the Guru, you're able to understand something that's ordinary confidential. Guravo guyam apyuta. Guyam, confidential. Not because it's the knowledge is hidden, but confidential because most people will misunderstand it. They'll misunderstand Krishna's pastimes to be material, but you know differently. Therefore, the knowledge is confidential because it's prone to be misunderstood. The knowledge is out there. But, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Name Vidu Suragana Prabhavam na Maharshaya. Who knows me in truth? The demigods don't understand me. The demons don't understand me. The greatest rishis don't understand me. That's why it's Guyam, confidential. So the same half of the verse that's there in the first chapter of the first canto is also here in the 13th chapter. Although the activities of the Supreme Lord are very confidential, no ordinary man being able to understand them, I shall speak about them to you, for spiritual masters explain to a submissive disciple even subject matters that are very confidential and difficult to understand because of the submissiveness, because of the affection produced by obedience. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami is certifying, Pritchard Maharaj, you'll understand. Any questions? Yes.
Maharaj, you put a very good point about the material people. You have to wait for the mic. Maharaj, you were mentioning about the materialistic people that they try a relationship and that relationship becomes sour and they continue.
Even in India, they're doing like this now.
Yes, they're following the Westerns. However, even in spiritual life, we are practicing this, and as you said, there were two stages, the first stage and then obviously the second stage. To get to that other stage, we are still struggling within ourselves with the spiritual life, and I know you lose sense on enthusiasm and determination. How can we be enthusiastic in our service while we're practicing, devotional life? Because even in our day-to-day, it becomes a monotony. It becomes...
That feeling that it's monotonous comes from mundane sense perception. It comes from polluted senses. Our goal is to have our senses purified by service to Hrishikesh, the master of the senses. When the senses are totally purified, only then can you understand Vrindavan and its pure spiritual sense objects. The sand on the bank of the river Yamuna, how soft it is, the fragrance of the lotus flowers in the air, the sounds of the birds chirping and the bees humming, the sights of the scenery done by the trees. Only when we have our sense perception purified. So this feeling that bhakti or devotional service is monotonous shows our contamination. And when that comes to you, that kind of feeling, you beg Sri Sri Gaur Nitai, I know this is wrong, this is due to my sinful nature, please help me. And of course, if you associate with enthusiastic devotees, that's the easiest way to be enthusiastic. Just like for Guru Puja this morning when Bhrigupati Prabhu was leading. And everyone begins to dance. Your Maharaj here, at the age of 85, was tasting the kirtan as newer and newer. You might say, well, you're 85 years old, you've heard of kirtan before. But no. He's tasting it as ever fresh. So if you want to be enthusiastic, find enthusiastic devotees to associate with. And don't trust your mundane perception. Oh, this is feeling monotonous. That's a sign when you feel like that more progress is needed. Don't be discouraged, just push ahead more. Yes.
Thank you very much. Such nice class. Thank you very much. How far karma acts on devotee? How far away karma acts on devotional service, like a devotee?
It's individual. Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Prachaja, surrender to me and I'll take care of your karma. Whether it's Krishna takes care of it all instantly or gradually, that's up to the individual. And it's also up to Krishna. Sometimes and often, Krishna gives you just a little bit of karmic reaction so you don't think you can enjoy the material world. He gives you just a little fraction of what you're due. So that actually is not karma, because it's a personal blend given by Krishna personally. It seems like karma. So what Krishna says is correct, even for a brand new devotee. If you're following the bhakti program completely, you're not under the laws of karma. You're under the influence of something that resembles karma. You're under the influence of Krishna's personal blend, as long as you stay in his shelter. And that personal blend varies for each individual. Krishna knows what's best for all of us, how to get us back to him. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.